Rebels, welcome to the Rebels Edge. I was skeptical, but today we've learned exactly why this name deserves to be in the Mag 10. Find out what it is and exactly what the big news is today.
All right, here we go. We got my man from Hawaii. How's everything out there, man? It's got to be great, right, Justin?
Everything is great. How is it going, Pete?
It's great. I had a great opportunity last week. Enjoyed myself out there in Southern California. I was out just a couple of days, Thursday and Friday, and then through the weekend or whatever. But we were there for the air show, but we were also there. I've got friends out there from UCLA that I had some conversations with that I might be doing some business with them. So that's really cool. And I'll tell you what, for anybody who's a sports fan, but specifically football fan, you got to go to SoFi Stadium out in LA. We talk about the stock all the time, but I'll tell you what, that building, that structure is absolutely incredible. And the fact that it's open air, so you've got wind and everything that comes through there, it looks like a dome, but it's really not. It's a special place, man. So that was a good time, and got a chance to see some of my buddies from the 49ers as well as the Rams and all that kind of stuff. And even some of the guys from the Chargers were there that I know. So really, it was kind of like a football weekend for me, man. It was lots of fun, and my wife enjoyed it because she might like football more than me. So
Wow.
It was a good time. It was a good time. I still think that one of these days, instead of going to Europe with this NFL, you got to get to Hawaii. I mean, if I were Hawaii right now, if I was the governor, I'd be like, hey, man, give us the NFL, right?
Yeah, what do we got to do? Yeah.
Yep. They could be out there, with part of the Niners and all those guys on the West Coast or whatever, and that'd be pretty cool. All right, well, we got a lot to cover here on the Rebels Edge today, and Justin and I are going to jump into it right now. And so what are we jumping into first? We always start with macro. And in today's macro, this is something that's become a bigger and bigger deal, this Kell sheet, right? They're looking forward and all the different things, and they put it all together, and what exactly are we really seeing? And what they're seeing is the possibility for, on the macro side of things, this government shutdown that started last week. They have right now 20 days. They think it'll last at least up to 20 days. So I don't disagree with that call. I would hope that it would come through a little bit quicker than that. But you take a look at these shutdowns, and, for the people who are freaked out about it, Justin, I would just tell them to hold off a little bit on the freak out, only from the standpoint of this isn't our first shutdown. As a matter of fact, it's double digits in shutdowns. So is it great? No. Is it an issue? Yes. Are we going to get it fixed at some point? I would think so. I would think that there's going to be some give on whatever side or both sides or whatever to be able to try to, maybe get the government back in. Matter of fact, the air show that I was at, part of the reason that it was so great but also missing was there are certain groups that are obviously part of the government, the Blue Angels. They couldn't fly. They weren't part of it. I mean, so the government shutdown, man, they can't go. They don't have fuel. They can't do it. They can't whatever. But it was still great. And matter of fact, when you see helicopters doing loop-de-loops and stuff like that, it's just outrageously cool to watch, but a good time. What do you got as far as the macro?
Okay, so I did not know that would impact air shows. I like the Blue Angels, so that sucks. I'm glad you still had a great time, but yeah, that's rough. Okay, stay on task, Justin. The average return for a government shutdown is all the way back to the 70s, plus minus 0.0%. It's entirely flat. There's no correlation to positive or negative returns from government shutdowns at all. So, yeah, I would just tell people the same thing you said. Just remain calm. And that's where I'll leave it with that. I think we'll stick with the same macro minute there. Remain calm. Probably not a big deal.
It's why we separate and we don't talk beforehand about it. And I love it because, sometimes it's agreed upon. Sometimes it's a little bit different. And I think that is, from a macro perspective, I think the government shutdown is about as macro as you can get, right? I mean, it's just absolutely outrageous. So as far as futures go, I find it interesting what's going on with the VIX. We've been basically planted from 15 to 16 now for what seems like a pretty long period of time. And it has been, we're talking about basically most of August, early part of August, still some higher vols. But most of August into September, we've had some bounces up. We've had some pullbacks down. But for the most part, 15, 16 is where we are. It kind of feels like it wants to start moving a little bit higher. And when I say that, it's just an inkling that I've got. And we've pushed towards 17, we pulled right back down. We've pushed towards 17, we've kind of pulled back down. It feels like it's getting closer to maybe being a little sticky. And could that be because of what we talked about in the macro? Yeah, that certainly could add to it and confuse things a little bit. I mean, we've already had things that we have not been able to receive because of the fact of the shutdown. So there's a lot there. The only other thing I'd throw on top of that is the Burl Ives trade is still on fire. Burl Ives meaning silver and gold. It's unbelievable. The new highs that we seem to set almost every single day there. So interesting to see what's happening for futures.
Completely agree. I could see us starting to creep a little bit higher in October, if only to fake people out and get people a little bit sold ahead of those 2 great months that we often have at the end of the year. Plus, we did see that really big VIX paper that I don't know if we're supposed to bring up or whatever.
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't know if I quite think we'd be going all the way out to where they were thinking we'd go, but you don't need to go all the way out there to see the VIX prices appreciate on those options. And you know that better than anybody else. So when Pete says, I have an inkling that we could start creeping a little bit higher, I tend to heed that call. The only other thing that I'll say is just that if we did, my broad, we'll say the ES is a future here, the SPY, the SPX. My broad take would be that if we fall down to that 50 SMA in the SPY, the SPX, 6,500 in the SPX, call it, I would be buying that with both hands for the end of the year very heavily. It'll be our first retest of the 50 SMA in like 110 days.
I like it, man. Always great stuff. All right, we got 4 stocks that are incredible that we're going to be talking about right now. We got to kick it off with the biggest and baddest of them all right now, at least today, AMD. It isn't very often that you see a mature company that actually comes out and because of the news sources that are going on around it is up as much as 30%. That is a pretty rare thing to see. Well, we're seeing it happen today, and a lot of that having to do with OpenAI, the deal that they're doing with AMD, of course. I mean, look at that spike. It's absolutely incredible. I mean, you're talking about from the 170s and all the way up to well over $200. I mean, this is a really, that I think the chart says it all. But this OpenAI and the deployment of all this and the 6 gigawatts they're talking about, and they're trying to get all of these things going, and the transferable OpenAI that they've got there. I tell you what, I wish that I could say, you know what, we saw the unusual on this one. I don't know that we did. I looked around, I just didn't see it. That doesn't mean that there's anything wrong out there. It's just that I think this might have caught people a little bit off guard to some degree, and that's why we're seeing this kind of a spike that's 30%. This isn't like a squeeze. This isn't one of those kinds of things with AMD. It's just the news story about what they're going to be doing and the possibility of a 10% stake from Sam Altman.
Yeah. So probably a month ago, we saw that the CBOE was making this new index that you could trade called the Mag 10. And it's basically the Mag 7 plus, I think, Palantir, Broadcom, and AMD. And I posted everywhere. I was like, AMD, really? We're gonna throw in AMD? That's an interesting choice. Now I get it. And who knows? Maybe they knew something I certainly didn't know. And you're right. Yeah, the only thing that I saw, because I went and looked at the UOA too, a while back, there was a leaps position that somebody had thrown on out in 2027, but such a stretch to say that would be anything related to this. Whoever that was, they got pretty lucky. What I will say is that, when Sam Altman is going to invest in your company, I think that's a huge, huge, huge deal. I think that people really revere him in the same way they do Musk. And the last thing I'll say is that AMD jumped 12 spots in the list of companies by market cap today. They were the 43rd biggest company in the world. Now they are the 31st biggest company in the world, right under Procter & Gamble and Bank of America. Hazard a guess they're going to keep climbing up that list between now and the end of the year because of this.
Yeah, the excitement there is unbelievable. And we're talking about a mature company. It's been around a long time. Lisa Su's been there. I mean, it's been, a competitor, obviously, to NVIDIA and all the rest of that stuff. To see this kind of a move is pretty telling. I mean, that does not happen very often. All that being said, next up, how about the banks? I mean, we're looking at this merger, right? Fifth Third and Comerica absolutely lifting up, like, again, similar from the standpoint of, but it's the why, right? It's up 20% today, 20+%. If you go to the ultimate highs that it's seen, I think in the pre-market maybe or something like that, had gotten up towards north of 82 or something like that, which is what the price represents in terms of what's happening with this merger. This is a 10.9, I'll be correct, $10.9 billion merger. So we've talked about these mergers and acquisitions and all the rest of this and all the, everything that's been going on this year in the markets, which has been remarkable. Some of these numbers are just outrageous. The consistency of 5 billion all the way up to 55 billion or more is just amazing. And to see what they're able to do here, they've got an enormous number of assets together. And you know what? It's going to be the 9th largest bank, U.S. bank. So it says a lot about what this is and what this means. And we're seeing more and more of this, Justin. It feels like on a daily basis, just these gigantic mergers that we are seeing. I think this one's a little bit different than others, but certainly being in the banking industry, this makes these guys right up there with some of the biggest of the big.
Yeah, this one stands out. You took the words right out of my mouth. 9th biggest U.S. bank is what we're expecting here. 288 billion in assets is what they're going to be holding. It's crazy. And, we may not have had some good UOA in AMD, but we did see some UOA, if I recall, in CMA here ahead of this move. And there it is right on the screen. Stock at 69.76. Looks like they were picking up this month's monthly expiring 75s for $1.05. Intrinsic value there now. I mean, what's CMA trading at as we speak? 81.50. Yeah, you're looking at least 650 on those options from an entry price of $1.05. Amazing move. And Pete, why do you think they targeted October 17th with this type of news? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's remarkable, isn't it? I mean, sometimes how good these guys can be and what they're seeing out there and everything. It always makes you wonder, but we just are a reflection of seeing this stuff. People could always say, well, you guys are kind of critical about the senators and what they do and whatever. We don't get that. All we get is what we see in the UOA. When we see that, and look at how perfect timing wise this was, right? I mean, that you gotta love it. There's stuff going on all the time like that, but it is part of the process. What do you got?
I'll tell you the last thing. I don't care about what the senators are doing. Go for it. Don't hate the game. Just play the game. I truly don't care.
I hear you. All right. How about critical metals? Now, this is another one where we've seen the president's been talking about this for a long time, the government getting stakes into things like the Lithium Americas and MP, Essential, all these various areas within the market. Well, it looks like there's more critical metals out on there with lithium and some of the rare earths, and that's what we're looking at with critical metals. It's only up 73% today. I mean, that's not that great, right? Unbelievable what we're seeing going on in this space. And I think that obviously the president has made this a focus, right? The rare earths. And he's literally looking at that saying, you know what? This is ours. And this is something we can have more control over rather than having to listen to everything with China constantly because of their investment in that world. So he's really evening that playing field that wasn't very even for a long time and starting to do that and actually locking down some of these companies. Pretty nice move. And I'll tell you what, absolutely incredible just to see this kind of a bounce that we're seeing out of this stock. I mean, 73%. We talked about AMD being up 30%, a huge mature company like that. And even this merger, I mean, up about 20%. Now here we're talking 73%. We've got some big things happening today and from over the weekend, of course.
I couldn't agree more. And by the way, last week, we spent an entire issue of the Rebel Roundup. Usually we talk about a bunch of different things. We just called it metals, minerals, and momentum. And it was just about all of these for the same reason. These government deals aren't done. After today, they're still not done. And if you look at what's happening in some of the other names in the space as well, we're seeing pretty big moves just in sympathy out of a ton of these names. NB, one of the names that we talked about, starting to make a move as well. I would be on the lookout for UOA in particular that maybe says, hey, we might know something, because what do we see in LAC? We saw that UOA ahead of time. What do we see in MP? We saw that UOA ahead of time. What do we see in Intel? Yeah, another government stake. We saw that UOA ahead of time. So keep looking out for that UOA ahead of these names that could be the targets. And I think that we could end up being in a pretty positive situation.
Especially when you consider the areas in which we're seeing all this happen. It makes so much sense anyway, because, you know, we're looking at the United States in a different way, because this is a very big pro-America group that's running it. And I'll tell you what, when we see UOA in anything like metals or anything like, you know, some of the rare earths or anything like the lithiums, I mean, that's a hot spot. And I would pay a little extra attention to those right now when we're seeing some of that UOA. It doesn't mean that they're a lock. It doesn't mean that they're going to be right, but certainly those are areas that are being focused on in a big way, and we are seeing exactly why. And we're seeing some of that. Now, here's something that's not working on the positive side. It's not up 10%, 20%, 50%, 70%. We're looking at quantum computing, which last I looked was down somewhere between, call it 14 and 15% to the downside. And why is that? Well, they're doing a raise. They've actually started this raise. If you go back to last year in November, 1.65 billion has been raised. They just went in for the 750 million now for this private placement. And it's something that's not a total negative, but for right this moment, the initial reaction is a negative. So that's what we're seeing. I would say that this is a name that I would keep a really close eye on for maybe a bounce. Maybe not immediately. Maybe it takes a little bit of time, but it would seem to me that they're doing it. Maybe you could say it for the right reasons, but I don't even know if I would go that far. I would just say that they put themselves into this position where they can do a lot more with the money that they raise, and they're very bullish about what they can do with that. But could we return up to 25 or more? I think that's a strong possibility. Does it happen in the next day or week? Probably not, but it could. It's not that far away. I mean, it is a push of 14, 15%, but you can already see a little bit of the reaction of, all right, it's getting a little bit better as the day goes on, and people are starting to realize maybe what they're doing and what this raise really could do for them in the future. So from that perspective, I'm bullish on the name, even though it's down whatever it is, 10, 12% right now.
Yeah, I agree completely. And if you look at what's going on in the other quantum names, if you look at IonQ, it's up 5% today after opening in the red, building on a 1 month 87% gain. Rigetti essentially trading flat after being up 36% in the past 5 days, 164% in the past month. And QBTS as well is moving to the upside. So would not be surprising to see QUBT just start to pick up that bigger quantum momentum from the other names. And also, people forget that this is why we're investing in these names. We're trying to help these businesses grow at the end of the day. If you're buying shares, if you're actually investing rather than trading, that is the net positive outcome for these businesses, right? That they can get something out of those investments, build the business better, and then be able to pay back shareholders in the long run. The last thing I'd say is that on Twitter, going around right now, there are some unsubstantiated pictures of some of the headquarters, allegedly, of some of these places, with the implication being that the headquarters don't look super great. Have you seen this at all?
I have not seen that, but that's interesting, right? I mean, Twitter's an interesting place. I wonder if we're
going to hear more about. Yeah, we'll probably hear more about that over the coming week. We'll see if it's real or not. But that's all I have to say. I like that.
All right, good stuff. All right, well, we've got, John's not here, but I believe he sent Jared one of his many videos that he sends throughout the week and day and everything else. And we just, you know what, John has so much fun with this, but this is the most outrageous thing I have seen maybe ever in the NFL. I've not seen something occur like this. So this is definitely worthwhile. And let's get it rolling, man. Let's get an idea. This is a Tennessee Titans game against Arizona, and Arizona was in comfortable control until this started.
We just watched one of the worst choke jobs in NFL history.
He just called it the worst choke job.
If I was the coach, everybody on the team would be running gassers after what I just witnessed. Because right here, the Cardinals are up 21-6 on 3rd and 1 in the 4th quarter.
3rd and short. First down.
Great play. Speed. But you know what? He doesn't keep running. He gets a little cocky, gets towards the end.
And they scored a touchdown, right? Now they're up 28-6? Wrong.
Nope.
DiMercato dropped the ball right before the goal line.
These guys drop. They do that a lot.
Get the points.
It's amazing, Justin. They do this kind of crap.
And the Titans go down and score. Now they have the ball again. 3rd and 2, still a 2-possession game. 5 minutes left. Okay, it's a little bit scary, but it's still manageable.
By the way, Tennessee had not won a game, right? I mean, so this is a team that hasn't won a game all year.
And it's a pick, right? So now the Cardinals have the ball, up 2 scores, with 5 minutes left.
Oh, he might have fumbled it. Tennessee
jumps on it. They kicked it into their own end zone, giving the Titans a touchdown. And take a guess at who won this game.
It doesn't happen, man. It doesn't happen.
I mean, they're still up. No, they lost. What should have been a 28-6 game, they lost. The entire team.
A team with no wins. They've got all the bad luck. They got nothing going on, and they, you know what? They got it handed to them by another team that's kind of been like Tennessee for a while, Arizona. It's amazing, man. When stuff like that happens, it just shows you the arrogance of the players. Because you know what? I played for a guy named Lou Holtz. I know you're young. You probably hardly know that name, even if you do know the name. But he won national titles at Notre Dame. He was a very famous coach all over the country. He did a lot of different things. Wonderful guy. Love him to death. But he used to always say to us, when you get there, act like you've been there before. This guy's not acting like he'd been there before, is he? I mean, he's walking down, he's all excited, he's strutting, he's doing his thing, and he drops the ball before he crosses the line. I mean, it's got to be the most frustrating thing for a head coach ever. So those words are exactly the words that I think go along with what the heck happened in this game.
Yeah, I've heard that expression about a few different things, and all true. And also, how pissed do you think that coach is at the end of this game, just seeing the team throw this away? I cannot imagine how hellish that follow-up practice would have been.
Well, when you're 0-4 and you get a chance to win, man, they got that opportunity because it got handed to them, just like, literally they handed it to them from Arizona. All right, next up, we're going to do a little bit of college football though, because we had a lot of different things going on this weekend, and a lot of mistakes going on other places. How about this one for a shocker, though? Penn State. Now, last week, not this weekend, the weekend before, Penn State is at home playing their big football game against a huge now rival in the Big Ten, Oregon, because Oregon, after coming from the Pac-12, these guys are big, bad, and phenomenal, and they know how to win. They know how. They have a coach who would never allow the kinds of things that we just saw in an NFL game. That would not happen to Oregon. I can promise you that, because he's very much a disciplinarian. But they're playing. Penn State's going out. They had just lost to Oregon, and so now they're going to 0-4 UCLA. They don't have a head coach. They fired all the coordinators. So a very historic name at UCLA, and not everybody's going to know it, but Neuheisel gets kind of prompted up. He's going to make all the play calls for the game for UCLA. They're 0-4. Everybody thinks they're the biggest doormat because they are. They're getting killed by everybody. But you know what? They got no head coach. They got no coordinators, and they go out there and they take it to Penn State. And how did they do it? They ran it right down their throat. And they put up so many yards, but they ran for, 280 yards they ran against Penn State, one of the best defenses in the entire country. They ran for 280 yards, averaged 5.5 yards a carry. I mean, unbelievable against that defense that a lot of people thought, even though they lost a few people to the NFL last year, a lot of people were saying that this year's Penn State defense is even better. Well, now they've lost 2 in a row, and this could put them out of the college playoff. And I'm not joking to say that. I mean, they were the number 7 ranked team, Justin, and now I think they're unranked. Now, I might be wrong. Maybe they're 25th out of 25 or whatever it is, but it's a long ways from where they were.
From my understanding, they are out of the AP top 25 entirely after that one.
That's amazing.
If I
How about Texas?
Yeah, it looks.
How about Texas? What do you think of that one? I'll let you talk. I mean, they go up against Florida. People want to fire the head coach of Florida, right? They're like, this is the worst team we've ever seen. We got to get rid of the head coach, which all those things going into the game were correct. But they're going up against number 9 Texas, who already took a loss already earlier in the year, right? They went up to Ohio State. didn't go so well. Arch Manning, who everybody thought was the Heisman Trophy winner, didn't play all that great. He's played a little bit better since, but they go out there and they lay an egg to Florida. I mean, so it's amazing in the same weekend to see both of these two, huge football schools, Texas and Penn State, stumble at the same time, both of which now have 2 losses, which, you know what, that's going to make it really, really hard. It's going to make it really, really, a lot of magic is going to happen for those guys to find themselves into the playoff. I think that it's unbelievable. Meanwhile, are sitting there looking at schools. Indiana's number 7. Indiana, it's a basketball school, right? Well, in football, they're 5-0. And Georgia Tech is 5-0. And these guys are all ranked. We got Missouri ranked top. They're 14th, 5-0. But there's a school named Memphis. Everybody thinks of Elvis Presley, and I'm one of them. But I did a game once when I was working with ESPN down there. I'll tell you what, that stadium is awesome. The people are loud. They really love their football. They're really good fans. And those guys are 6-0 right now. Their offense is averaging a little over 40 points a game, and their defense is averaging a little less or right around 16 points a game. So they're not just beating people. They're beating the snot out of people. They're beating them by 24, 25 points every single game based upon those numbers of where they are right now. So that's one of these kind of sleeper schools that people might not need to keep an eye on, maybe. I don't know. But what do you think about this whole thing with Texas losing and Penn State, these big dogs, all the money in the world, right? They can buy every athlete they want, and yet they lose. How about that?
Yeah, but you can't buy heart. You know what I mean? When you got the first time since 1985 that a team with a record 0-4 beat a top 10 opponent, that's huge. And I have to imagine you're probably knowing that statistic when you walk onto the field. You're knowing all the odds that are stacked against you, and you want to just take it to them. And then being able to do that, I mean, that must be so. That's your movie moment. You know what I mean? That's incredible. Yeah,
it's cool.
Just yeah.
All right, next up, how about the NFL? So there's a couple of surprise teams, I think, early on in the NFL. You know, we've talked about the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything else, but one of them that's been ugly early, but not yesterday, was the Texans. The Houston Texans, they've played really bad this year. They'd be the first one to tell you because they all will man up on what they've been doing, the mistakes they've been making, why they aren't the team that everybody expected them to be. Got a great quarterback in C.J. Stroud, all those wonderful things. But I'll tell you what, those guys have stepped up to the plate, and they're putting the hurting on some of the teams that they played. So this one was Baltimore, and all they did was run, kept on running, and beat a team that, you know what, the Ravens defense has become so bad this year, and it's what John Harbaugh, not Jim Harbaugh, but John Harbaugh is kind of known for. He's been known for having the best defenses in the NFL year after year after year, starting with Ray Lewis and that group all the way up until now. Because this year, they've stumped. They're giving up so many points in every single game that they play. It's unbelievable. But the Texans came out. They beat up on somebody. And then last night, we're sitting there watching the game. We're sitting there watching the Buffalo Bills, right? Great football team. Best offense pretty much locked in. One of the best defenses pretty much locked in. And for whatever reason, they weren't locked in for the game because New England played their tail off and actually took them down. That was the only undefeated team left in the NFL, which goes back to the Miami Dolphins, who made their run, and they were undefeated. The only team that's ever been undefeated. And you know what? Buffalo was kind of eyeing that up. Well, they might have eyed it up a little too much because that didn't happen. What do you think about some of these and some of the craziness? We got college football, we got the NFL football. It's amazing.
Yeah, a lot of stomps is what I think. I mean, you look at Texas and Baltimore, 44-10. You look at Colts Raiders, 40-6.
Right.
You look at how many yards Houston was. 417 yards from Houston.
That's unreal.
That's just
well. I'm glad you brought up the one, too, because with the Raiders, the Raiders, unfortunately, they just, for whatever reason, they haven't pieced it together. Pete Carroll, I thought he was the right guy. I thought they had the right quarterback. But you know what? I'm wrong on this one. I thought that they would start off better, maybe fizzle a little bit just because, they've got some older players and this, that, and the other. But they're fizzling early. And the Raiders they just don't look all that great. But, I'm amazed at what the Colts have put together already, because, you know, you take a look and you look at the quarterback and everybody would go, this guy's, you know, nothing. I mean, he was the third string quarterback for the Vikings last year. And here he is, all of a sudden, he looks like he's an all-pro god. You know, they run the football really well. They throw the football really well. He doesn't throw a lot of touchdowns, but he also doesn't throw interceptions. So you look at what they're doing right now on the offense, pretty good. Defense, same thing. They're playing really good football. So it's interesting to see that, you know, in a thing like the NFL, some of these, look at how many teams out there need a quarterback really bad, and none of them wanted to get Daniel Jones. And all of a sudden you look at him and you're like, wait a minute, this guy's pretty damn good. And he is. When you look at I think it's his QBR or something like that, where he's top of the entire NFL. I mean, it's like, he's not throwing a lot of touchdowns. He's not throwing a lot of interceptions, but his accuracy and everything else, the guy is playing his lights out football right now. It's fun stuff. It's fun stuff just to see the mayhem and all the craziness that goes on with all that stuff. But anyway, Justin, thank you so much for being with us today. And there might be other days this week. We'll have to see what goes on. John's got all sorts of traveling and this, that, and the other, and I can't even keep up with him. But I appreciate that you took the time to join us today on the Rebels Edge, bro. Thank you.
I love it. Yeah, thank you.
All right. See y'all.